A lesson to unlearn. Tonight we're going to give the report of a very specific lesson that we as present truth believers need to unlearn. This is a long time lesson from many, many years ago. And we're going to show this lesson in all its obvious error so that we can unlearn this lesson and tell others about it. We have prayed. We ask that you do the same thing. Ask the Lord to guide you. Let the Spirit of truth guide you. John 16:13. And he shall be faithful. Let's begin. We have many lessons to learn and many, many to unlearn. God in heaven alone are infallible. Those who think that they will never have to give up a cherished view, never have occasion to change an opinion, will be disappointed. As long as we hold to our own ideas and opinions with determined persistency, we cannot have the unity for which Christ prayed. One Select Message, page 37. So here we see, brethren, as we know, many, many times we quote this reference to Mother. However, this has a lot of bearing upon us as present truth believers. The reason being is because there's a lot of mistaken doctrine that we promote even to this very day. And so we want to expose one of these doctrines that fall like a straw house in a windy day. Okay, this is just really something that we have to unlearn, and it's quite good that we unlearn these things, because then we can know that we're on the right direction, right path. All right, so our quote for this study is found in 8 Symbolic Code number 1 to 12, page 4. Remember, too, that the practice of comparing statements stripped of their context is fundamentally disingenuous and leads today to as many perversions and misapplications of truth as does the deliberate wresting practice in Satan's challenge to Christ. If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Matthew 9:6. So here we see that Satan misconstrued the scriptures, and today, unfortunately, we're practicing the same thing. And what happens, and how do we do that? We strip it of their context. If we take the context and make that the central focus of what we're trying to say, and make sure that it's in line with what we're saying, we'll be safe. Okay, so here is the case study that we're going to talk about. And that is found in Shepherd's Rod, Volume 1, page 62. And that volume, as we know, was made in 1930. And it says, at the end of 20 years, Jacob was homeward bound to the promised land and his father's house with great possessions. By the time he arrived at his father's house, he had his 12 sons and the heads of the 12 tribes. Before Jacob entered his father's house, he went through that terrible struggle and wrestled with the angel till the breaking of the day. Genesis 32:24-29. Jacob's wrestling with the angel typifies the time of Jacob's trouble for the church. We read in early writings, page 36-37, a decree went forth to slay the saints, which caused them to cry and day and night for deliverance. This was the time of Jacob's trouble. See also Patriots and Prophets, page 202-203. All right, now, as we look at this paragraph, as we look at these two paragraphs here, we notice that I highlighted the important part that I'd like to focus on. We notice that in the 1930s, when the rod was first coming out, it did not have light on the kingdom. It was quoting from early writings about Jacob's time of trouble. Let's keep this in mind. 1930, the rod did not have the light of the kingdom. Therefore, it was quoting from spirit of prophecy, which we know didn't have the light of the kingdom as well. So this is something that we want to get into. And we highlighted patriarchs and prophets, specifically that reference, so we can go further. All right, so when we look at that prior statement, this comes into application. There are circumstances in connection with certain aspects of every message which necessitate clarification. Such clarification, however, can be no greater than the light which shines at the time. And the light may come solely from within the message itself, or again, it may derive from a limited understanding common to the time then present, an understanding which the messenger himself shares. So we know that at that time, Brother Hadif's understanding was to go along with the spirit of prophecy, because he had no light to show further upon this teaching. So this is why this Shepherd's Rod Volume 1 has that reference right there, an explanation right there. All right, now we also remember in that reference it says, go to this quote, Patriarchs and Prophets, page 202 and 203. We're going to pause for a second so you can read this one. All right, so here we see that this statement was to be given by the prophet as a supplement. In other words, this is help clarifying what that prior reference was saying, because it was for the church. So he felt that this would be helpful, and we see it is. Such will be the experience of God's people in their final struggle with the powers of evil. God will test their faith, their perseverance, their confidence in his power, and Satan will endeavor to terrify them with the thought that their cases are hopeless, and so forth and so on. So this application right here, this reference, helps explain the reference. That's why Brother Hadif gave it as a additional reference to explain the reference. All right, but remember, we know that we have to look at the context. So that Patriarchs and Prophets statement, we go back to the prior page, 2001, and we read the following. And this puts it in context. And I'm going to read this part right here. When Christ shall cease his work as mediator in man's behalf, then what? This time of trouble will begin. What trouble? Jacob's time of trouble, brethren. Okay? So, in context, Brother Hadif was pointing to the timetable. And that is that it's not prior to Ezekiel 9, that we can put that application, the Shepherd's Rod reference, prior to Ezekiel 9. We can't do that. We have to put it where it belongs when we look at the whole scenario here, and that is when Christ shall cease his work as mediator. This is after probation closes, brethren. So we cannot apply that reference, which some brethren do, in their teaching that Jacob's time of trouble comes before Ezekiel 9. We heard it the other day from Waco brethren on their fellowship study. One brother quoted that quote from the Shepherd's Rod, 1930 quote we showed you, as proof that the 144,000 will be persecuted before before Ezekiel 9. Now, brethren, obviously that brother did not look at the context of what inspiration was showing us. Had he done that, he would read what you're reading right there and say, aha, this whole thing means after the close of probation. So as we pointed out, and this is why we're saying a lesson to unlearn, we have to remember Sister Hoddif did not have clear light on 144,000. She did have some, but not very much. Not very much clear light. That was the job of the rod. That was the job of the last prophet, Victor T. Hoddif, to expound upon. And as we know, he has so much information on the 144,000, so much information on the kingdom. This was the purpose of the rod, not the purpose of spirit prophecy. So, brethren sometimes, unfortunately, take that shepherd's rod reference and they misapply it simply because they don't take the context and they don't understand that was the common teaching of that time and the rod was simply borrowing it. All right, so our summary here on this short lesson is many lessons to unlearn. And those unlearnings are the new codes. We've got to get rid of that teaching that the new codes are inspired. The Jacob's time of trouble, we've got to teach it the right way, that it comes after Ezekiel 9 and the Assyrian Confederacy. There's no such thing, brethren, as a death decree prior to Ezekiel 9. There's no such thing as the authorities coming after the 144,000 before Ezekiel 9. This is all made up foolishness, all made up construction, private construction, and I dare say it all started back with the teachings of Salem, the teachings of Don Adair. This is where a lot of these things, each one of these, new codes, Jacob's time of trouble before Ezekiel 9, Assyrian Confederacy, we take that and it goes back to the doorstep of Salem. Okay, this is where the Mountaindale leaders and the Waco leaders were taught from, with Salem, particularly Don Adair. Now, we can even go further and say that Don Adair was taught from M.J. Bingham. Okay, so if you want to even go further than this, this goes to M.J. Bingham ultimately. But this is a little history so that we want to make sure we unlearn this history, brethren. If we want to get closer to the Lord, if we want to get closer to His truth, we need these lessons unlearned. So thank you for joining us. On our last slide, we want to go over this, that Mountaindale right now is having a very, very important 14-day session. Now, already a couple days have been entered into as we make this presentation. But this is a phone number you can call to join in. It's being held by freeconferencecall.com. That's the system they're using in addition to Zoom. So you can enter in both systems to join the conference. Again, 9 a.m. Eastern to 1:30 p.m. And then there's a Q&A. And a lot of times those Q&As go long. So sometimes they'll go all the way up to 5 p.m. Eastern time. We've been involved in the first two sessions, very lively, as one can expect. The standard Mountaindale teaching is being defended vigorously by some of the old guard, and that's understandable. I mean, one brother says you can't teach old dog new tricks, okay? So it's very difficult, brother. We have a challenge. We have a mighty battle before our hands, and there's many of the brethren are supporting the idea that these lessons have to be unlearned, but they're going up against the status quo. And so it's very, very difficult, brethren. There's a back and forth going on. The status quo will not give in. The ones that have the new light about the truth of the matter, how the new coach cannot be supported and be part of the bowl, are fighting tooth and nail. In other words, this is a spiritual battle. So we ask your prayers. We don't know, what the ultimate end will be, but we know the Lord's truth will win out. We know that for sure. So keep this session in mind and in prayer as we go forward. Thank you again, brethren, for joining us. And until next time, may the Lord continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.